system is good, it works well, the system is sound, and we have demonstrated with an event culminating in March 13, which was the first positioning done with European-only means. 4 European satellites launched from European territory, managed by European ground segment in Fucino and Oberpfaffenhofen, where the control centers are. And we have demonstrated with a high level of performance that Galileo can deliver high level of performances for positioning and timing. This was done in 13 and confirming that the system is sound. Now we are in the deployment phase, meaning that we have not to go with 4 satellites, but reaching 30 satellites by the end of the decade. We started with the 2 first FOC satellites in August, with the anomaly which is known. And now we start, I hope, the routine phase, where we can produce satellites in Bremen, in the premises of OHB. We can test the satellites in ESTEC, in the ESA center. We can launch from Kourou, operate from space, and have step by step a complete constellation by the end of the decade.
So, Didier, we are 9 minutes to launch. What's going through your mind right now?
9 minutes to launch. It's intense emotion. But what I would like to say that today, more than 1,000 persons are working for the same objective, to make a successful launch. People here in Kourou, people all around the world waiting for satellite. I would like to mention also the people in Toulouse, in the CNES center, because they take care of satellite just after the separation. Arianespace delivers the baby, but the baby now is will be in the hands of the Toulouse center. So 1,000 persons for one objective. It's emotional.
That's good teamwork. Didier, thank you very much indeed. Didier Feff for joining us here on the floor. Our programme comes to you in French and in English tonight. In the French commentary box is Thierry Bouvard. And we're going to find out a little bit more now about the launch campaign. It's taken about 7 weeks to prepare.
Oh, cool. Let's see the Soyuz being assembled there.
Once the of the Soyuz vehicle arrived in French Guiana, they were transported to the Launch Vehicle Integration Building, the MIG, where the first 3 stages were assembled horizontally, starting with the 4 boosters which were strapped onto the 2nd stage, followed by the integration of the 3rd stage. Meanwhile, the 2 Galileo satellites arrived in Cayenne and were then transported to the payload processing facility at the Guiana Space Center. Teams performed a series of tests and checked the good health of the satellites in the utmost cleanliness before sending them for fueling operations. The satellites were then attached using a special dispenser before being transferred to the S3B buildings for integration with the upper stage. The whole stack was carefully encapsulated inside the protective case of the fairing to form what's known as the upper composite. The first 3 stages of the vehicle were transferred to the pad 4 days before launch. It was then raised to a vertical position inside the mobile gantry, which protects it and provides feed lines until it's retracted 1 hour before launch. The upper composite, that's the fairing with the satellites, frigate and the dispenser inside, was then hoisted on top of the Soyuz and mated with the 3rd stage. The fluid and electrical connections were then activated, along with the air conditioning inside the fairing.
Hogyha erőszakot, tehát nagyon erőszakot csak nézd csak Gabi. Csak így ilyet csinálj, hogyha nagyon erősz. Hogy igen, most csináltak, hogy
Many of these operations are overseen by the teams in the launch control center.
Jó, figyelj, most csönd, mert...
in a concrete bunker. We have Russian and European teams working alongside each other here. One of those is responsible for ground operations, and they're also coordinating with mission control for final authorization to launch. Another team is responsible for the flight readiness of the vehicle. They oversee all the operations from launch vehicle assembly to the moment of launch. The safeguarding team ensures that all operations are carried out according to strict rules guaranteeing the utmost safety at the base. And then we have another team, that's the CVI, or Immediate Visual Control. During the flight, the launcher sends information to the ground to tell us how it's progressing in real time, and the team receives that information and passes it to the Range Operations Manager here in Mission Control, who then announces the confirmations of the major events in the flight to everybody listening across the range. And that was Joël Egalji, who we saw earlier announcing the minus 10, 20. I'm now in my commentary box. I'll be here for the rest of the flight. And joining me is somebody else from the European Space Agency, another navigation guy, Sylvain Lodo. Welcome, Sylvain.
Hey, good afternoon.
Sylvain, you're the Galileo ground segment manager. Talk to us about the ground segment.
Yes, in fact, all space systems have a space segment, the satellites, and also a ground segment. So that includes, in our case, control rooms where we monitor the satellites, facilities where we process the data we get from them, and also tracking stations all around the world.
We'll be seeing some of those tracking stations later. So we're 4 minutes and 18 seconds to launch. We're going to have various phases during our flight. Let's take a look at those.
Hi everybody, I'm here just to present you the main events of this launch VS-11. 2 minutes after the liftoff, the jettisoning of the booster will take place, and then after 4 minutes there will be the fairing jettisoning, and just 1 minute after this fairing jettisoning there will be the cutoff of the block A and the ignition of the motor of the block I. During 4 minutes the block I will follow the course of injections in order to inject the frigate MT, which is the upper stage. Then the frigate MT will do its first boost during 30 minutes. And then there will be a very long cut phase of around 3 hours. And after that, the second boost will occur during only 4 minutes in order to circularize the orbit. And then the separation of the two Galileo spacecraft will take place.
Well, that's all to come, but right now we're just under 2 minutes to launch, and there's Soyuz on the pad. Can you see the big grey mast over there on the left-hand side? That's feeding what we call the umbilical lines, or the feed lines, taking information from the satellites to your teams on the ground, Sylvain.
Yes, you're right. The feed lines are being disconnected right now.
There we go. He's just announced that disconnection.
So now it means that we no longer get information from our spacecraft. And we can't see the lines anyway because they're inside the mast.
And they drop into a basket. There's also another mast below that, which we will see drop off just before launch, and that big grey mast will drop off just before launch. So watch out for that. A word about the ignition sequence on Soyuz. We have a system for checking the health of the engines before it leaves the pad, Sylvain.
Yes, you're right. So the engine on the 4 boosters and the core stage are all ignited 17 seconds before liftoff. And then thrust is gradually increased to check the engines if they are working fine in particular.
And then they slowly throttle up the engines to full thrust, and it's at that point that the vehicle then leaves the pad. Mission control. Couple of things just to run through again before launch. Just watch out for that mobile gantry withdrawing 45 seconds before. Then we get
Attention pour moins 1 minute.
then the big grey mast. He's announcing
Stop. À 0 moins 1 minute.
He's announcing 1 minute to launch. We are orbiting the 7th and 8th satellites in Europe's Galileo satellite navigation system for the European Union and the European Space Agency.